The last etiquette of dua before we move on to that which we should not do is to make dua at times and conditions of response. Okay? There are certain times where the dua is more likely to be accepted. And there are certain conditions as well where the dua is more likely to be accepted. These times and conditions is a separate lecture. We'll talk about that after Asr inshallah. But this is of the etiquettes of dua as well, that we make dua at those times. And we make dua at those situations and circumstances where the possibility of dua being responded to goes up. Today we'll now talk about one last topic before the break, and that is those acts which are discouraged, we should not do. We've talked about the preconditions. Those of you that are still awake inshallah, we've talked about the preconditions of dua. Then we've talked about the actual etiquettes of dua. And now we're going to talk about those things that we should not do while making a dua. Once again, summarize them. Well, firstly, before getting there's certain points which is common sense we should not do. Of them is to ask other than Allah. Or of them is to ask for haram things. Or these things that we've already talked about. This understood that all of the etiquettes, the opposite, we should not do. There are other things as well that we should not do. Of them is poetry and dua. To make our dua into poetry. Because this is not befitting. Okay, once again, the example of the drowning man, when he's drowning, he doesn't think of poetry and start saying it, to have some rhyming thing to save him. No. He needs something, he asks it. Poetry goes against the humility that is required in dua. And this is unfortunately very common, especially in Salat al-Taraweeh. You find people, and you can tell, they sat down and they wrote some poetry for dua. They were going to make sure that the last phrase is always rhyming in dua. And this goes against the khushu'. This goes against the humility that is required. Okay? Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said, beware of poetry and rhyming in your dua, for indeed I found the Prophet ﷺ and his Sahaba avoiding it. Beware of poetry, making your du'as rhyming and long and becoming like stanzas. No, this goes against the khushu', the humility, the taqwa, the humbleness that is required. Sometimes it so happens that accidentally two words rhyme in the dua, or even in the Quran or Sunnah, sometimes it happens. If that is the case, unconsciously, of course, no problem. The problem is when you sit down and you write literally some poetry to make your dua. And you hear some of the famous qadhis or something in their du'as, you can tell that they have spent hours and hours trying to think of some beautiful poetry and make a dua out of it. And you lose the whole khushu'. You start thinking of the rhyme and you lose the content. And that is something that is not good. But unconsciously, if it happens, of course, no problem. Likewise, if it is in the Quran and Sunnah and there is some rhyming things in there, again, no problem, because it is found in the Quran and Sunnah. But we ourselves should not consciously, intentionally have poetry in the dua. Yet another act which is not allowed or prohibited is transgression in dua, to go beyond the bounds. Now transgression can occur in many ways. Of them we have mentioned some of them, to ask for something which is haram, or to ask for something which is halal because of a haram intention. You want money but to do haram with, again this is transgression. Of them is to exaggerate in dua, to ask for needless, for pointless matters. For example, Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas, he passed by his son making dua. And his son said, "O Allah, I seek Jannah, grant me Jannah, and grant me the white palace that exists on the right hand side as soon as I enter Jannah." Okay? Specific things which are of no value. So Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas said, "O my son, ask for Jannah and you will be given everything inside it as well." Okay? There is no point being this specific. Ask for Jannah, you will be given its goods. And then Sa'ad ibn Abi Waqqas said, I heard the Prophet ﷺ say that there will be a group of people in my ummah who will transgress the bounds in dua. And I fear that this might be the transgressing of the bounds. You're going to too much specifics. Oh Allah, give me Jannah and all is good. That's all you need to ask. You will be given all this good. You don't have to start detailing them. Okay? Give me the hurun ayn and give me this and that. Don't worry, you will get it inshallah. Get into Jannah and you will get it. The problem is, just work to get into Jannah. Once you're in Jannah, everything in it will be yours. So the over-specification, this too is a type of transgression. Yet another type of transgression is to ask for something which has already been decreed. Oh Allah, grant the Muslims Jannah. The Muslims will get Jannah. You can say forgive all the Muslims of their sins, yes. But something that has already been decreed, no, you cannot ask for that. Obviously to ask for something which is kufr or shirk or something as well, this makes, without mentioning it, this obviously, without having to state it, obviously this goes against transgression. There is a type of transgression of dua. Yet another transgression of dua is to ask for this dunya only. And this is a big mistake that unfortunately many Muslims fall into. When they make dua, they only ask for this dunya and they never ask for the akhirah. And this is a big mistake. It shows many things. It shows a weakness of iman. It shows a weakness in the love of Allah, because you love this dunya more than you're loving Allah. It shows that you're very short-minded, that you're asking for something which will be taken away from you after 50, 60 years, and you're forgetting to ask for the eternal life. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمِنَ النَّاسِ مَن يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيَا وَمَا لَهُ فِي الْآخِرَةِ مِنْ خَلَاقٍ. There are those amongst mankind, they say, oh Allah, give us in this dunya. But because they don't ask for the akhirah, they will not have anything of the akhirah. So Allah censures them, He gets angry at them. And then He says, وَمِنْهُمْ مَنْ يَقُولُ رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنَةً وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنَةً وَقِنَا عَذَابَ النَّارِ أُولَٰئِكَ لَهُمْ نَصِيبٌ مِّمَّا كَسَبُوا. These people, the one who says, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ, these are the ones who will get a portion of what they ask for. As for the one who only asks for the dunya, he will not get neither the dunya nor the akhirah. Or even if he gets some part of the dunya, he will not get the akhirah, so he will lose out in the real glory and the real treasures. So this is one of the evil etiquettes of dua, is to only ask for the dunya. It is a sign of Iblis as well. Because Iblis, when the one dua he made, what did he make? Give me life. Give me life until the day of judgment. He could have repented, he could have done tawbah if he wished to. He could have accepted his sin and gone back to Allah, but no. The one dua he makes, give me life until the day of judgment. So this is a sign of shaitan as well, to ask only for this dunya and to ignore the akhirah. Yet another of the matters which is goes against the etiquette of dua is to improperly use the names and attributes of Allah. To improperly use the names and attributes of Allah. In other words, you do not use the proper names and attributes. When you want forgiveness, then you say Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. You do not say Ya Shadidul Iqab, Ya Qawiyyu, Ya Aziz. You do not say this. O strong and O full of the one who punishes severely. You say O Rahman, O Ghaffar, O Tawwab. So you must use the proper names and attributes for the dua that you are asking. Likewise, if you want to punish, or you want your enemy to be punished, O Allah, show your strength and might to the kuffar, for example. You do not say Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. You say Ya Qawiyyu, Ya Aziz. Protect the Muslims against the kuffar. So you use the proper names and attributes. Yet another makruh, or yet another act which is not allowed in dua, is to make dua against yourself and your family. And this is unfortunately a very common habit that both Pakistanis and Arabs have. Very common habit. That they make dua against themselves and their families. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala even says in the Quran that وَكَانَ الْإِنسَانُ عَجُولًا وَيَدْعُ الْإِنسَانُ بِالشَّرِّ دُعَاءُ بِالْخَيْرِ. Sometimes man makes dua for evil, for himself, just like he makes dua for good. Sometimes a mother or a father will get angry and curse their children. And we learn from the story of Jurayj that Allah will respond to this curse. So one has to be very careful how one gets angry at one's children. Even if they deserve that anger, they do not deserve the curse. Look at Jurayj, for example. And again, the beauty of the story, Allah responded to the dua of the mother, but He also saved Jurayj from the intent of the dua.